Oh, we are? Okay.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to GNG Gil and Gurpreet's LinkedIn Live segment, where we cover all things to do with HR employee experience. Today, we have a special guest, Eric, and we are going to talk about the workplace in the age of pandemic. As everybody knows, COVID has been a very impactful time in everyone's life, including workplaces. So we want to have this conversation. Eric's going to walk us through, obviously none of the workplaces are ever going to be the same, and nor they should be the same given this pandemic. And still so many things are happening Eric's from San Francisco, me and Gil are from Toronto. So it'd be nice interest to see his perspective, even from US perspective. But even in both countries, we're going into reopening phases, and a lot of schools are not going to be open in September. Parents are trying to figure out if they're going to send their kids to school or not. And the work-life balance is a mess right now. Like, it's just, there's no work-life balance, and the kids are there. So it'd be really interesting to hear Eric's thoughts on the workplace after pandemic, how it's going to look like, and why it needs to change. So let's dive right in, because we only have 30 minutes and we always go over. So Eric, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Calling in from gloomy San Francisco this morning. Thank you both for having me on today. So Gil and I have had a couple of conversations. I think one of the biggest kind of COVID silver linings that has kind of come out of the past few months is having the opportunity to network and connect with people via LinkedIn. And so I feel very grateful and fortunate to have been able to connect with Gil. I think when we first started talking, you had one drawing behind you, and now you've got a huge mural of art. It's lovely to see the progression that's evolved over time there.
Yes, slowly. But you know what? My kids can't be held back. Their art can't be.
Nor should they. They should just take over completely. So just a little bit about me. In San Francisco for about 15 years. I've had a rather kind of serpentine professional career. I started out in the performing arts, theater, acting and directing, kind of transitioned into alternative medicine. I was an integrative medicine and licensed acupuncturist in San Francisco for a number of years. And then I started working within the tech sector, kind of working with that population in particular, and kind of attending to a lot of the issues that were occurring within that demographic. Transitioned over into tech, working for a healthcare technology company, and quickly kind of found myself in this kind of workplace experience role before we were even calling it office experience or workplace experience, and really looking at what is that kind of unified people, place, technology experience that employees have working for a company, and really trying to bring together all the disparate aspects of workplace, be it HR, IT, facilities, operations, leadership, DE&I. Like, how can we bring them all together to make sure we're actually creating a workplace environment and a workplace culture that's going to support our people and meet them where they are? So that kind of went on that journey. I was at BlackRock for a little while, and then I was at WeWork, for, just a small startup. I don't know if you've heard of WeWork, but things kind of got a little wonky.
Yes,
so no longer with them.
I was gonna say, yeah. Are you talking about WeWork?
Did you see something? I think there was like a headline or two about WeWork. But yeah. So during this time,
so that was you. That's why. Those.
It wasn't me. It had nothing to do with me. I tried to help them. But it was a very interesting opportunity. I was able to work with a lot of big kind of Fortune 500 companies and really kind of see what people were doing. And so during this time, I'm working kind of freelance, kind of looking for full-time work. But it's been a great opportunity to really, another kind of COVID silver lining is I've been able to sit in on a lot of conversations, be it DE&I, design, facilities management, and really like getting a really good sense of kind of what everyone is talking about. But again, nobody's talking to each other. And so my hope and what I've loved about my conversations with Gil is that I think from an HR perspective, I think there are ways in which we all need to be having these kind of shared dialogues. And so my goal for today is really just to kind of talk about, this is what I've been hearing. This is what everyone's talking about. These are what the trends are. And these are kind of my 2 cents as to how I'm making sense of the world. I want to caveat by saying, there's so much uncertainty right now. I don't know how y'all doing in Canada, but the U.S. we're having a hard
And
time.
you guys, sorry.
We're having a hard time. The downstairs neighbors they're causing a ruckus.
You guys, that's why I made that comment. Better than you
Yeah.
guys. But my sister lives in California, and it's crazy. Like I stopped following the news now because like
It's too much.
Mental health. That's
Too
why.
much. Yeah.
it doesn't help.
Yeah.
But yeah, like your guys' cases are like you're like the top one right now, number one in COVID, like 3 million plus.
Yeah. So I think, as it relates to kind of, what we're talking about, I think behavior, I think is really fascinating. And I think the one thing that, even pre-COVID, from a workplace design, workplace operation standpoint, my biggest gripe, my biggest issue is that we would design these spaces. They would look super cute. They would look super hip, open floor plan, all the amenities.
Tables,
But how are people actually going to engage these spaces?
Yep.
And I think right now we're living in a time where everyone has retreated back to what is familiar. So I think we're living in these kind of localized spheres of trust and safety. And so to get people out of that kind of bubble of trust and safety back into the workplace, we're going to have to make sure that like we're doing our due diligence to communicate what are the initiatives, what are the things that we're doing to ensure your safety. Let's acknowledge the space in between home and work, but also we need to acknowledge that, once you get back into the space, we may discover that everything that we did was a bad idea and we have to redo it. And so I think it's going to be an iterative process.
The communication is going to play a very component as companies are reopening and going back. You're going to have to like get uncomfortable with communication because too many people don't communicate because they're just kind of like scared or uncomfortable communicating things. But this is the one time that you're gonna have to put those fears and uncomfortableness aside and really on a human level. Think on a human level. It's impacting all of us. We all have common thing in common right now is COVID. Yes, everyone's dealing with it differently because again, it's human nature, right? Tons of people deal with things differently. Sometimes when you're told not to do something, you want to do it even more. And that's,
like wear a mask.
But that's happening, right? Like you see it every day. Like you can see the differenceness. Like where I prefer to stay home and all that. Like I went through my own anxiety in the beginning, but there's so many moving factors. One of my best friends has 3 kids. She wants to go to the office. She needs because she has a demanding job, 3 kids at home. So companies gonna have to get very unique on flexibility, on this whole maybe alternating who comes in, what days you come in. Maybe some people can't come September. School like here in Ontario anyway, school starts in September. I know California, you guys I think start around August. My sister's kids are gonna go back August, but they're still doing online. But how are you supposed to manage kids? School, home, work home. Her company holds. She works for a great company, so they said until next year they're home.
And I think that it's interesting. I think a couple of things that I would like to respond to in there because I think you bring up some really insightful kind of aspects. First of all, only 37% of the U.S. population can actually do their job completely from home. And so I think that the biggest thing that I'm seeing in a lot of these workplace return to work conversations is they're kind of treating that 37% as like 100%, and that's just not the case. And I think what we're talking about, I think we can stay focused on the 37%. But I think what you're getting at is that there needs to be choice, there needs to be flexibility, and there needs to be intention. And so I think the one thing that's being talked about right now in the workplace design world is looking at, a couple of things. So there's a lot of talk about this kind of hub and spoke model, so like creating more kind of localized places like a WeWork or a shared space that's closer to where you live, that's going to be closer to that sphere, that kind of circle of trust and safety. And so you're not having to go all the way to a city center in order to get to work. But for those city centers, those HQs, instead of, do those become more kind of dynamic kind of scrum spaces or laboratories or convention centers, or kind of thinking about it in these kind of innovative ways where I was on a call yesterday and a guy was kind of described it as a laboratory. He was like, scientists don't typically have their breakthroughs in the lab. They have their breakthrough like when they're in the shower or doing something else, and then they go to the laboratory to work through the problem and work through all of the complexities of that. So can we start looking at workplaces as these kind of destinations of experience, these ecosystems of experience where people are going there very intentionally? There's an operational team that's dedicated to this site that's going to set it up in whatever configuration you need for the time that you're going to be there. And then you go, you do that kind of intentional work with the people that you need to work with. And then let's say you don't go back for a couple of weeks, and then that operational team cleans it appropriately. They reconfigure it for whoever's coming in next. So kind of thinking about it in more of kind of a convention center, kind of laboratory thinking is where my mind is going, and where kind of the design kind of industry is pushing it right now.
So basically, workplaces are being disrupted.
Yeah.
Traditional ways are not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
Never understood this whole.
And actually, I don't think they were working. Like,
no,
I don't think they were not working.
Never working.
They were not working, like, at all.
To the image, coolness, hip, especially the tech industry.
Yeah.
It was all about hip and pool tables, open space. Oh, look at us. I never understood how can you work in open space.
Yeah.
If someone can only work in quiet space, they can't function in open space.
So I have to interject there. So I think the biggest frustration that people in the design world have had is that we have been done with open floor plans for like years, but it's because it's been so popular, the aesthetic, and I kind of blame WeWork for this, but Google's and I think everyone saw the pretty picture, and they were like, I want the pretty picture, but no one knew how to activate those spaces. And create dynamic spaces that gave people choice. So like, Gurpreet, you don't want to work in an open space. Luckily, we've got this library. And
but I can, I'm HR.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like can we give you a contained space? For if you're legal, if you're HR, like I think that they were kind of creating these umbrella designs that weren't actually engaging the end user and saying, well, what do you actually need? Like, let's design this space. Let's create this space for you, which is why I think it's a great idea that we're moving in this direction of more dynamic, future-proof spaces that can be whatever you need them to be. Like, you need privacy? Cool. You need something open? Cool. We can do that. So I think that's the direction we're going. But I agree with you. Like, a lot of the things that we were doing before weren't working. And I think this is it's good. This is a pivotal kind of inflection moment, I think, for us to rethink that.
I think exactly. I think COVID has had the opportunity, like you said, about intention for organizations to start to think about their communication methods, their communication models, which ones can work asynchronously, which ones need to be synchronous. And I really liked that idea that you were talking about building this flexible workplace design where you have a reason for coming in for whatever amount of time it is. And that's something you discover intentionally as you're working together. I'm sure there are a lot of situations, and I've spoken to numerous people that have figured out over time, okay, this isn't what's working for us communication wise remotely. These are the things that we haven't baked into our new system that existed in our old way of doing things. And so by being intentional about that and being flexible, it doesn't have to be the same thing for everybody. Yeah. Gurpreet can sit in the library, and you can keep me in the library.
She has a corner office. I don't know what you're talking about, Joe. I've designed her.
You do not want me working in an open office concept. I'm going to tell you that right now. My voice is way too loud.
Oh my God, my voice is so loud.
You do not want me in an open office concept.
So let me explain something. I'm different. I call myself unique because I can work anywhere. I can work in quiet. I can work in loudness. I can have music playing. But being in HR, there's going to be a point where someone wants to come talk to me. I can't be in an open space, right? So that's where you need the office. I don't like, traditionally speaking, in 14 years of my career, I don't like being in the office. I like to be out and about and mix in with the employees. So they see me. I'm part of them, right? Not in the office, look at me, a high and mighty. And that's where some of the office they don't like. So it's nice to have that mixed stuff. I never liked open concepts for various different reasons because I feel like it just created a little bit noise, maybe. Yeah. But again, like they became a trend.
Yeah.
and I want to speak on trends. I don't think you need to follow trends.
Yeah.
And I think too many companies get caught up in trends. It's not about trends, it's what your people need. Your people should dictate how your workspace should look like, how you operate. And this is where the human element comes into play. And I think COVID has really made that shift, and it's really shaking companies up to be like, wake up, smell the coffee. You need to start doing things differently.
Yeah. So something. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, interrupted.
No, go ahead.
So I want to link back. There was something you said earlier, just in regards to communication, and I think that you know, oftentimes you were kind of talking about kind of the challenges that leadership has, kind of communicating and maintaining communication, but this is not the time for leadership to be dictating or assuming or being like, it's okay to not know. Like, none of us know the answers. None of us have been through a pandemic before.
But that's not the traditional paradigm of leadership, though. And that's where I think a lot of leaders are struggling, is that traditional paradigm of leadership is, I know everything, I have the answers, I'll tell you what to do, you go do it.
But that is not leadership.
But that's the traditional paradigm. That's what was perceived as this 30, 40, 50 years ago. That's what was treated in most organizations. That's what got people up the corporate ladder. And the problem is that, exactly like Eric is saying, that leaders were stuck in the narrative in their own heads. They came up with something. And, you know, I've been stuck on that whole trends idea my entire career in how much it frustrates me, because it's the exact opposite of user-centric design. It's saying what this expert is telling me is more important than what my users tell me. They're the expert, they know everything, and my users be damned, even if they have completely different needs than whatever this expert built their ideas on.
And I think that they're go ahead.
It's so true. Leaders, and I like what Gail said, in the traditional setting, traditional ways, leaders just, I'm a leader, so I'm in charge. What I say goes, right? But in reality, that doesn't work. I never, ever, and I'm grateful for having great examples and role models in my life and my work settings to know that it doesn't work like that. You can't go in and say, you gotta do this, right? You gotta understand first. You gotta understand the needs. Understand where they're coming from.
So I think, my question,
partner with them to come up with a solution.
Totally. And I think the question, and I think my hope is that leaders are turning to our people, like HR people, you know what I mean? And our workplace people, and you know, really kind of deferring to the people that are a little bit more in touch with, I think, with the kind of current reality. And I think, you know, if HR people, if you know, facilities people, if they didn't have a seat at the table before, they better have a seat now, because like, they're going to be critical to the future of work. And I think that you know, to kind of go back to my early thought, I think that it's okay for us not to know. And I think that the future really needs to be driven by people and really be driven by their needs. And I think that we have, you know, to kind of go back, you know, again, we're all in our homes, we're all in our own little bubbles of trust and safety. And we're all kind of picking up new behaviors, new ways of living, new ways of engaging and working. And I think the longer that we're in this, the longer that's going to get solidified, that behavior is going to get locked in. And so another thing that we have to kind of just stay on top of and just be aware of and constantly check the pulse of is like, what are those behaviors that people are picking on? What are those anxieties? What's the psychological kind of mental health component to everything that's going on? And let that also inform everything that we're doing, you know, downstream with what we're doing with workplace. And you know, plexiglass and like disinfectant and all it, like, none of that stuff is gonna like, and I've seen people spend so much money in the past couple of months kind of throwing just money at the problem without actually engaging the end user, without actually understanding the science and kind of understanding what's going on.
Process and analyzing before. So basically, a lot of people have been reactive. Proactive, right? And just find some is also what the law, like the government's dictating. My cousin's opening up their tutor center, so they have to follow all these guidelines. Otherwise, you'll get fined. So
is your cousin in Canada or is
in in Canada. So my
Okay.
sister owns a restaurant. They own Mountain Mike Pizza. So you're in San Francisco, so
Yeah.
you've probably heard of it because they're big on San Francisco.
Yeah.
So she has it on SoCal, and so yeah, you have to follow the rules and contact and all that stuff. So government's also
Yeah.
dictating, right? Depending on which state and what country and
Yeah.
province you live in, you have to follow the laws too, right? But then I totally get your point where a lot of times people, and we've been doing this so many times where we're reactive. Stuff like, okay, hold on, let's take a step back, do focus groups, talk to people, and see what's going on, because everyone's needs are different right now.
Yep.
I'm single, my needs are different, right? Gail has kids, his needs are different.
Yeah.
Everyone has different needs. And the anxiety, you talked about anxiety.
Yeah.
I had so much anxiety. First, I didn't have anxiety, but second week or third week, all of a sudden I started having anxiety. I hated going out. I don't want to go to the grocery stores, right? So that we're transitioning back, I think everyone has to keep in mind that everyone's going to transition in their own time. Some may not feel comfortable and have anxiety coming into work. Perfectly normal. Instead of pushing people to come back to work, you're going to have to navigate that too. And I think that's where you can use some expertise, advice on how to navigate these challenges, because again, we're humans. We all function differently. We all deal with things differently, and we can't force people. And speaking of leaders, you said something I was inside laughing, because I still know some leaders that are not changing. They think their way is the best way. I know one particular leader, because he comes to work every single day. He wants his team to come to work every single day in the office. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
So somebody I know needed to take, and what people are forgetting is life is still going on, right? People are having babies. But the thing is, if your family member just had a baby, you got to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. They need to, you need to. You can go see the baby. So I know somebody that needs to self-quarantine, and instead of taking vacation, they can easily work from home. They're a senior level manager, right?
Yeah.
Their boss said, no, I just had a baby and I'm here, so you need to be here.
Oof.
So you have to take vacation.
I mean, that's another kind of interesting thing that I've been delving into, is kind of the legal kind of component of people, of testing, of what companies are required to do, people who don't want to come back to the office, people that are saying they have a medical kind of situation. Like, that's a whole other exciting topic of conversation.
But I don't want to skip over this psychological aspect, because you both brought it up, and I think it is such a vital understanding of workplace design, of return to work, that the human experience around COVID, around being away, around returning to work, exactly like you're saying, Eric, how some ideas, some thoughts, some behaviors start to get ingrained.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be a significant psychological component of going back to work. I was speaking to somebody who they had to go back to work, although they ended up going back to remote shortly thereafter. But they went back to work. The first half hour, everybody was excited to see each other. It was a reunion. And then within a half an hour after that, everybody just wanted to go home.
Yeah.
And there's the anxiety and fear aspect leading up. So of looking at it as a journey of going from
I call it
remote work.
The return to social closeness. Like, I wrote a piece back in March, and I talked about the return to social closeness, and I was like, that's going to be a thing. Just you wait.
Exactly. And it's going to be a journey for people of understanding what to expect, when to expect it. Yeah. Right? Are you bringing people back that can be working from home, like Gurpreet's saying? Or are you sticking them in an environment where they have this huge plexiglass next to them and have to clean their hands every 10 minutes and all of these things? And what's the psychological impact of going back to that environment?
Which is why I think that this conversation, and I think you can't just be like, hey guys, they're coming back tomorrow. Like, I think that they need to be part of this conversation, and there needs to be a re-onboarding. And I think a dialogue about, these are the things that you've said to us. These are the changes we've made. These are the new ways in which we're going to behave in this space. These things we've let go of. Like, everything has to be re-onboarded. Like, they're new employees who have never been in this building. It's got to be a brand new experience, and you've got to treat them like they're a brand new employee and they don't know anything about your company. And I think during that journey, then you start to get you start to give your trust away, and they start to earn your trust. And then you feel a little bit more confident, and you feel like, okay, I know what I'm going into. I mean, Gurpreet, you said going to the grocery store. I mean, I feel the same way. I went to the grocery store yesterday, and it's exhausting. Like, it just, the mental kind of labor that it takes. I mean, beyond like, I actually wrote a piece about going to the grocery store too, but like, like putting on a mask and doing other things. It's just having to navigate people that aren't paying attention. And it's kind of like,
God,
it's driving, and like looking out for bad drivers. It's exhausting. It's so exhausting.
Even forget grocery stores now. The stores are opening. I can't do this. I will not stand in line. Mentally, it's exhausting for me to just stand there in line. I can be more productive somewhere else. But some people need that. Some people need to be out. Some people need to just touch things, right? I'm not touching anything because I touched it, right? I have a mom, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of moms, also parents, like me and Gail talked before we go live, and I'm like, are you seeing people, family? And he's like, his parents are older and stuff like that. But I live with my mom, right? So you have to put in these factors. People may want to see their parents. They're older. You're gonna have to self-quarantine, right?
Yeah.
So I think when you're bringing people back, I love the fact that you said we on board, treat them like new employees. But I think let's take a step further. Do it in stages. Why don't you need to bring everybody in? Maybe do incubators. Try it out with 10 employees first, right? Test it out and make changes, because you can't go full-fledged and say, okay, you know what? Here's what we're doing, because you don't know the hiccups. You don't know what's going to happen, right? So you got to treat it like test pilots. You're going to have to do test pilots and say, okay, we're going to bring in 5 people and 10 people. Let's try it out, right? Because more people coming in. I just know a company where when they went back to work and then someone got affected, like someone got COVID, then they had to shut everything down and they had to trace all their stats back, who this person interacted. And this is one of my friends. I'm like, oh my God, did you meet this person? Because she went into the office to do something. She's like, luckily, she's like, no. She's like, the person came after I came.
Yeah.
So she's HR. She's the director. So she had to basically was like all day, past 2 days when this happened, she was on the phone with every single person, talking to every single person, tracing the steps back, notifying everybody. So much stress on everything.
Had we thought about that? I mean, so 2 things I want to say to that. I think there's companies come in many sizes, but I think it's fair to say that the reality of every single employee coming back to the office probably not going to happen again.
No.
It's not. Let's just say that it's not going to happen.
Even.
And I think the kind of the nature of kind of this talk and I mean, we are in the age of pandemics, and I think that there's been a lot of talk about like the other side of COVID, and once this is done, and once we have a vaccine, and all the research that I've been doing. I mean, the reality is that, like, I hate to be a downer, but like a vaccine's not coming anytime soon. I mean, that's just the nature of vaccines. And
they already said that it's going to take 18 months, 2 years, really.
And I was reading, I mean, I don't want to go down this path, but I'll send you guys the link. But there was this whole really like detailed analysis that was written out of all of the things that need to be thought about, all the ways that, specifically in the US, we need to be allocating funds. But they were even going into like the supply chain of like vials and needles and like all of the things just to distribute and administer the vaccine. Not like we don't even have the capacity to create those things, let alone like even if we had a vaccine, trying to get it sent down the pipeline. So I say that, not to be doomsday or Debbie Downer, but I just think that it's important for us to think about, like, as we're designing this new reality, I refuse to call it a new normal. I hate that. I call it a new reality because that's what it is. As we're designing this together, I think we need to kind of keep this in mind, the fact that, like, things are got to be different. And I think when we're looking at, trust, when we're looking at safety, I think, I'm a well-accredited professional. If you're not familiar, the International Well Building Institute is a kind of the governing body that does these kind of rating systems for buildings to show their kind of the healthiness of the building and its impact on people. So if you're familiar with LEED, like LEED certification for buildings is focusing on the environmental and energy efficiency of a building. WELL is focusing on the health that the buildings have on people. And so, there's a lot of stuff that we can do from a workplace and a building standpoint, from HVAC systems and those types of things, and doing filtration. And so I think buildings can be safer in the ages of pandemics, but they're only as safe as the behavior of the people that occupy them. The president of IWBI has been saying that a lot, and Rachel Gutter, and it's been really sticking with me, because we can do all of these things to make our buildings safer, and we can have all these kind of high hopes of what life will look like on the other side of this. But I think culturally, and I know, Gil, I know you're writing a lot about culture this week, so I don't want to step on any toes, but I just think, businesses and companies and leaders and HR professionals, we all need to kind of be coming together to kind of support what that new behavior as a company and as a culture needs to look like in this new reality. But a little long-winded, but I think it's something that I really am, trying to kind of poke at people to start thinking about in these ways, because it's just the way life is going to be.
No, but I think that's really important, because what you're doing is you're talking about creating things from a human lens and from a way that will actually create the outcome that we're trying to strive for. So we can make these amazing environments, and we can put in all of these like safety kits and all of these cleaning, but I saw two different tweets talking about schools coming back recently that talk about this, talking about behavior, and this is their child behavior. One of them is your kid's going to go to school with a Paw Patrol mask and come back with a Spider-Man mask because they traded at lunchtime. So first of all, like, that was one of them, and the other one was
Lord,
you don't think kids are going to lick their hands and run after each other yelling Corona, like, you don't know kids, like, that's just how they're going to behave, and obviously that's at a child level, and it's a very different thing.
But I think that's
at an adult level, we need to do that. We need to think about that.
I mean, I like going back to my office manager, like office operation days, especially at a company that served food. I saw the most disgusting behavior. Like I've seen CEOs not wash their hands after using the bathroom. That behavior does not stop once you're an adult. Like I've seen adults do some really gross things in the workplace. And so I have the same anxiety and the same fear. And I think that's kind of going back to what we're talking about. It's like, how do we create spaces that are going to be healthier for people? But like we as a people, as a humanity, there's got to be some training. I was joking that like, the two biggest things that this pandemic has really brought to light for me is that, one, people didn't know how to wash their hands. And two, people lack the basic fundamental scientific knowledge of how viruses and bacteria are transferred. To me, I'm like, oh, no one knew how to wash their hands. Cool.
Awesome. You see it now. I see it every day because I go running in the morning at dogs. I'm out now after my anxiety kind of like left it. And I see it all the time. Everybody knows it's been how many months? In the beginning, fine. Maybe you lived in a bubble, but now like we're in it, right? And you see so many people who won't move. I have two dogs. Mine are little, right? But naturally I have a habit of pulling them when I'm walking and someone's coming, right? I now don't pull them. I'm like, you want to be an idiot and you don't want to move because you live in a bubble. I don't know you. You don't know me. I don't know. I don't want to interact like space. So I purposely don't pull them anymore. I pull them a little bit to create the safe distance.
Yeah.
And me and my friend we're both HR. So we're what? I'm like, what's going on? Like, we're always. And I was like, isn't it funny how common decency, like just common sense. Just move. No.
Yeah.
Basically, there was a group of people standing, older adults, and we're walking, and we're looking. And it's like, we're just gonna have to say, excuse me, move, right?
I'm wondering if it's like,
excuse me, move, and then they moved, and one lady still didn't move.
Yeah.
My friend's like, I go, you know what, people. It's interesting. A lot of people think they're not going to get it. A lot of people think it's not impacting them.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, just have to be very cautious because I left my mom. My dad died.
Yeah.
We've been back with my mom. She's 67. I only have one.
You're having to think about not just yourself, but
From
other
my
people,
mom,
and
other
also
people,
strangers
right?
on the street. Like,
Everybody. And my anxiety also stemmed from, I lost my dad 2018. I'm a one parent, and I want my one parent to live longer. It's not in my control, but whatever I can control, like, we don't let her go out. We don't tell her no groceries, no nothing, right? But that's where I come in from. If I live by myself, I wouldn't care as much. I'm young, I'm healthy. But the thing is, people forget, like, this is not just about you. It's about everybody around you. And we are in an epidemic. I don't think anybody wants to get sick. And if you think you're not getting sick, that's good. Good for you, right? But I don't want to get sick.
I hear you.
There's a couple of things there. I think as it goes back to behavior, and I'm just imagining like walking through the office. Like I'm taking myself back in time to what it was like to kind of be in an office and navigating space. And I'm a hyper aware person, and I think when kind of a whole other area of conversation that's happening in the design world is looking at neurodiversity. I think within the workplace and looking at people that are hyposensitive or hypersensitive to sounds and whatnot, and ADHD and autism. But some people like just are in their own little world, but some people are hyper aware. And I'm also curious. Like, there's something about having the mask now. Maybe in conjunction with, like, if I don't look at you or if I don't acknowledge you, then that creates kind of a bubble where I'm not going to get the virus. Like, there's an interesting kind of thing that I feel like people are like, I'm not going to look at you and I won't get it. Or I just find that kind of amusing. But it's interesting to kind of see how that behavior is picking up. And again, it's like we're driving on the highway and everyone's on their phones, and we're like trying to navigate this highway of people moving around.
Yeah.
So we're a bit over now. So I want to give you just a chance to just wrap us up, take us home with a few closing thoughts.
Before you do that, just have to let both of you guys know, clearly there's a glitch. Hence we don't have any comments. LinkedIn's I just saw a notification from one of my connections. There's a glitch and no one's getting this notification. So we're all gonna probably just have to reshare this.
Okay, that works.
Great topic. It's such a great conversation, and LinkedIn decides to have a glitch.
We'll definitely get it out there. We definitely, it just won't be live, but that's fine. We'll definitely get it out there.
Yeah, we're gonna have to just get it out there manually. But yes, Eric, your final thoughts on this.
Final thoughts. Thank you both. First and foremost, this was really great. I'm glad I got a chance to meet you and talk. And I think that at the end of the day, I mean, I kind of spat out a lot of information there, but I think that for HR people, for employee experience people that are really kind of tapped into their employee base, you're really going to be the bridge, and you're really going to be the advocate for all of those people to make sure that their thoughts and their anxieties and their fears and their concerns are being communicated to the powers that be, and vice versa. I think it's you are the bridge there, and you need to make sure that those people are advocated for. I think is going to be critical, and making sure that the end users are being thought of. So, but I'm available on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me with any additional questions. I mentioned a couple of articles and studies. I'm happy to share those links as well.
Definitely share. I would like to read on those articles. Loved your energy, by the way. I have to say, love
it's
your
10 a.m. I've had a few cups of coffee, like.
Oh yeah, you guys are 3 hours behind. Love your energy. Thank you so much for coming on. Now it's working. There's comments coming in. But thank you so much for coming on our show, and thanks for Gil for arranging you to come on.
Thank you.
First time. Oh, cool. First time meeting you, and hence I like your energy. And definitely we'll have you back again.
Awesome.
We have a lot of more insights to share with us. So thank you so much for coming on. Gil, do you have anything to say?
No, I just want to say thanks, Eric. This was exactly what I was hoping for when I reached out to you. You have a lot of great insights, a lot of perspective that doesn't get enough conversation in most businesses. Most businesses, they barely think about the people side, much less that kind of workplace experience and that kind of depth that really draws out value both for and from people. So I just wanted to say thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it. Stay well. Take
Yes.
care.
So thank you everybody for tuning in. Sorry guys, there was a glitch on LinkedIn. You're gonna have to we'll try to push this out manually ourselves later on. But thank you for tuning in. This is G&G LinkedIn Live. We do this Thursdays and Mondays. Every Thursday we have a guest, and Mondays same time. Monday and Thursday 12:30. Except for this Monday, it's a long weekend here in Canada, Ontario at least. So both and Gail and I are gonna enjoy our long weekend. So we will not be on doing a show. We will be back on Thursday with another guest, and we will let you know who the guest is. So thank you once again for tuning in. If you want to be a guest on our show, feel free to reach out to Gil or myself directly on LinkedIn. Or there's topics you want us to cover, again, reach out to both Gil and myself. We'll be happy to cover any topics anybody wants us to cover. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you guys after the long weekend. Bye, everybody.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.